Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Meyer, Chair of the Riders Advisory Council, and I call this meeting of the Riders Advisory Council to order on January 4th, 2023. So welcome to the new year, everyone. John, may you please call the roll?
Sure. Brian Meyer.
Present.
Daryl Brewer. Jose Del Cid.
Present.
Mahalia Fernando.
Present.
Mike Leibowitz.
Present.
Pat Sheehan.
Present.
Cole Stout. Okay, maybe Cole will join us later. Emma Wormser.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum, so.
Thank you so much. I motion to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. The agenda is approved. We'll now transition to public comment. This is a great opportunity for members either in person or virtually, or those who have pre-submitted any comments for the Riders Advisory Council to do so now. Are there any members in person? Or any members of the public? Are there any members virtually? Feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you. Steve.
Thank you. Can you hear me? This is my first opportunity with Teams.
Welcome. We can hear you.
Oh, great. Well, I'm Steve Caffin, and I'm a member of several WMLATA committees, including the Accessibility Advisory Committee, previously the Bus Transformation Project, and most recently the Better Bus Project. I had a conversation with a woman rider about a week ago, whom I've chatted with before. This happened to be near my home at the DuPont Circle North bus stop, servicing route number 42 for the bus, across from the metro, and it's the principal connecting point between rail and bus, and I think that's what she was doing at the time. I arrived and she knows me, and she said to me, you know, this wait gets longer and longer. And there are actually 6 people waiting at the time. So I said to her, have you contacted Metro customer service about the situation? And what she said to me was, there's no way to talk to them. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention because it may be one of the overriding issues that resulted from the Better Bus survey results, which were okay, but you know, could be better. I've had experience in using the form online to contact customer service. It's a complex form and it rarely gets a response. What I think the riders want is a human interactive experience where they can explain fully the particular concern, have somebody say, look, we'll research it for you, and get back to them. And, you know, I don't know whether this is kind of an ombudsman or maybe not so official, maybe just a group of 1 or 2 people that handles a particular bus customer service calls to strengthen the ongoing responsiveness, not necessarily waiting for the local meetings that are had, but just be available for specific concerns. I think that would strengthen the results that we've currently seen. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Are there anyone else? Okay. Hearing none. John, were there any pre-submitted?
There was one letter. Excuse me. It was from Earl Holloman. Good afternoon. After the recent shootings and robberies on or around Metro, I have written the DC Council's Committee of the Whole, which houses the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission already. I am writing to ask if this council is still active, and if so, what measures are being suggested or taken to improve safety for riders. There's a push to get more riders on Metro, but why aren't safety measures being established as well? Metros are dark, dim tunnels without metal detectors. Transit police are hardly visible, which adds to the paranoia and feeling of constant unsafetyness. After the latest shooting today at the Benning Road Metro station, the Metro GM stated that riders are safe. I was mind blown and speechless. What measures are available for rider safety? How are riders safer right now than they were at 9:30 a.m. when the latest Metro shooting occurred? Fare evasion has been going on for a long time without any action. How long will shooting be allowed to go on before action is taken?
Thank you so much. And I would like to also submit my own personal public comment, and that is just highlighting and recognizing a piece of news that came out today about Metro Transit police officers being equipped with Narcan to prevent opioid overdose deaths, I think pertaining to rider and customer safety. I think that is a very positive development that our Metro Transit Police Department is equipped and trained on using that particular life-saving medicine and tool to help people that may be overdosed. So that was very welcoming, and looking forward to seeing how that could prevent further injuries or deaths in our system. So, are there any other public comments? Mahalia.
Hi, I'd also like to bring up a concern. In the 2 weeks that I rode the Metro almost every day between Christmas and New Year and the week before, there were at least 4 incidents of people smoking in the car that I was in, and it was mostly cigarettes, but also weed. And I think it's crazy that this is allowed to go on. As I know, it's, of course, it's not allowed, but also I'm not comfortable confronting anyone on the train. But I think it's a concern, and it just seems to be getting worse. It does not seem to be going away.
Mike?
Hi, Happy New Year, everybody. So on what we just heard from, I guess regarding the safety and the weed, I can tell you that, as part of the annual report committee, pretty much, I mean, there's everybody I talk to when they bring up like 3 issues that they have or concerns they have about Metro. And I know it might sound petty or small to some people, but it really is a concern for the riders, the smoking and the weed thing. I mean, it's, I've at least more than half the time during the week, every day when I go on the train, at least once a day. So half my commutes, there's cigarettes or weed on there, and it's and nobody's going to confront it, and so it is a concern for the riders, and I don't think that should be minimized. And to just for Steve's comment, I thought it was really helpful. That's something that we've also heard. So just for Steve's edification, that having a dedicated bus, customer service call line is something that has come up in some of our conversations I've had with people. So as we prepare this report we're working on, that is definitely a proposed solution that we're going to present in a report to the board. So thank you for that comment.
Thank you so much. Are there any other public comments? Hearing or seeing none, we will transition to the next portion of our agenda, which is the proposed FY24 operational budget, and we have several members from staff who have come to talk about it with us. So we have Tom, Mark, and Alex. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening. And I will turn the floor over to you. The presentation will be projected certainly on the Teams, but feel free to follow along otherwise with the presentation that was delivered to all members of the RAC. So thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
And thanks to the Riders Advisory Council. Tom Webster, Planning and Performance at Metro. I'm joined by a few members of the team here. We'll walk through the presentation and then happy to engage in some dialogue here, and the team will help me with questions I don't know the answer to. Really appreciate the council's, I know Alex and Mark and I think maybe some others were here a couple of months ago to talk about some of the things we're working through. And last month, the general manager proposed his FY24 operating budget and FY24 to 26-year capital improvement program. And later this month or next week and going into the next few months, we'll be going through some public engagement and discussions on the budget. I wanted to touch today on the proposed service and fare changes that are included in the budget. Excited about some of the things we're bringing forward here. The budget advances some incremental Metrobus frequency improvements while we have launched and are moving forward with the bus network redesign. It includes some frequency improvements, some rail service frequency improvements, and with a focus on improving service in the center of the system, predictable transfers, and increased destination access. It includes proposals for a low-income fare program, a regional low-income fare program administered by Metro, as well as some pretty significant simplifications to the Metro Rail fare structure. All really focused on improving the experience of our customers going into next year, encouraging ridership, increasing revenue, and importantly, advancing equity and access to opportunity. So at the heart of the service proposal, we of course all know that customers want fast, frequent, reliable service, and they want it all day. And we've confirmed this assertion with data from our customers, with surveys and analysis of travel behavior in our system and transit in general. Coming out of the pandemic, the team's been working also to restore our 7Ks and trains into service. For the past several months, we were working on a bunch of different concepts and evaluating them for best using our rail infrastructure and improving service in an optimal way using the infrastructure and the vehicles and the resources we have available. Again, focusing on how we grow ridership and improve access to opportunity. The concept here is to increase daily train trips all day and provide very frequent service in the center of the system, and then that provides a strong base for the entire system and the region. Trains will arrive every 3 to 6 minutes in the core and every 8 to 12 minutes or better system-wide, so across the whole region. The first part of the proposal is increased green and yellow line service with a changed service pattern and more frequent train service. By running more trains, the entire green line and the yellow line will receive 6-minute service all day instead of only the combined parts of the service. These improvements will clearly especially benefit the parts of the southern green line that have traditionally been served by less frequent service, despite their relatively close location to the core of the system. And it combines significant equity benefits for the region with also high ridership potential with some of the growth and development that's occurred on that segment of the system. It also substantially improves yellow line service and connections from the fastest growing parts of Alexandria and that part of Virginia and the region, and increases frequency and access downtown. using the Yellow Line Bridge, which is currently closed, but with our existing baseline service is really an underutilized asset in our system. The second part of the rail proposal is, thank you, John, I may have lost control here. Or maybe it's frozen. Okay, thanks. So to run more Orange Line trains, providing 7.5-minute peak frequency and 10-minute frequency all day. This improves connections at particularly New Carrollton to intermodal connections to Amtrak and MARC on the future Purple Line, and offers more frequent service than our baseline and today in the busy Ballston corridor. It's about 23% more service than the baseline service on the Orange Line. We have a couple of examples, and many of you have seen this, of what a customer will see at some select stations, but this repeats across segments of the green, yellow, and orange lines. So here we have examples at Congress Heights, Eisenhower Avenue, and Vienna, and you see much more frequent service. And instead of baseline trains every 12 minutes, the proposed trains would come every 6 minutes on the green line at Congress Heights, 6 minutes at Eisenhower Avenue, and 7.5 minutes at Vienna. And again, this is maximizing the capacity of our system in these locations. One of the significant benefits of the changes is much more efficient, fast, speedy, predictable transfers at our key transfer stations. Here we have an example of what the PIDs would look like on the different platforms at L'Enfant Plaza, so right here. And you see very short wait times at a key transfer station where many of our lines intersect. And what this does is it provides, again, fast and quick transfers for a lot of customers who travel through the core and make connections to other parts of the system from their baseline. Thanks. Sorry. So also importantly here, because of those transfer benefits, I'll just call out the example of the customer traveling from Silver Spring to National Airport. Even though the red line frequency would remain the same as the base, that a red line customer would still see pretty significant benefits due to the decreased transfer time, wait time at Gallery Place on their way to National Airport. We also have a couple of examples here of destination access from two stations. So here we have Anacostia, and one of the values of increased frequency of service and shorter transfer times is improved access to jobs and other destinations within a relatively short amount of time. So with a short walk to Anacostia, the number of jobs accessible within 30 minutes for somebody commuting from there increases quite substantially. So by 25% with that short 30-minute commute as a result of the more frequent service and the shorter transfer time. Another example here, Braddock Road Station in Virginia, and again, the combined benefits of the yellow and green line driving a considerable amount of that destination access improvement. Overall, we're projecting a very significant portion of our existing customers would be positively impacted by these service changes, with about 40% not impacted and about 8% impacted by slightly longer total travel time. We expect the improved frequency and the faster transfers will also lead to more ridership, so ridership growth. And overall, this is possible with relatively small dollars in the scheme of our over $2 billion operating budget. So about 19 million net increase in resources and investment in service. So to summarize, really excited about those rail frequency improvements. Appreciate the feedback from the RAC on some of the draft concepts. We have deferred consideration of some of the other service changes for a variety of reasons, but you recall some concepts that looked at turning trains at Silver Spring and Grosvenor and improving frequency in the downtown on the Red Line. We've elected to defer that at this point. Also, we're examining for the long term the potential to improve travel time on the Silver Line, and again, electing to defer consideration of that for now, or a recommendation to defer consideration as the Silver Line Phase 2 has just opened, and want to see what customer behavior is with the new service, and continue to explore some options. We are constrained, I think, as most of you know, with our two-track system. You can only speed up the trip as much as the next train in front of you, so we're looking really with the existing infrastructure at a maximum express improvement of about 4 or 5 minutes, but still worth considering and examining for future consideration. Mentioned also, we're recommending a few incremental bus service changes. So about a year and a half ago now, the board approved and we implemented the all-day service improvements on about 36 bus lines, so 20 lines to every 12 minutes and 16 lines to every 20 minutes. So we're building on that with some incremental improvements recommended for FY24. And then, as I mentioned, we've launched the outreach components of the Better Bus network redesign, and actually later this month we'll also be presenting an update on that program. So the three changes that are included in the proposed budget, again, improvements to the B2 in the District of Columbia, the A12 in Maryland, and the 16M the creation of the 16M in Virginia. All three things where planning work has progressed already, and we're close to ready to implement these changes. Expect ridership benefits at, again, a relatively low cost, in anticipation of more changes coming as a part of the network redesign in FY24, FY25. Again, relatively modest cost with some potential ridership growth from these service restructures and improvements. Moving to fares, I mentioned, and I think the team probably discussed with you the implementation of a first ever regional low-income fare program administered by Metro. The concept is to offer low-income customers a 50% discount, very similar to the discounts currently offered to senior and disabled customers for Metro Rail and Metro Bus. The proposal is to design this that customers will qualify based on their enrollment in jurisdictional supplemental nutrition assistance programs. So either in their home jurisdiction, and that is what would qualify somebody for Metro's low-income fare program. And our proposal is to offer customers a very straightforward, quick sign-up process with the idea of reaching as many people and driving this program designed to drive equity to as many people as possible, as many customers as possible. A relatively modest cost, again, in the scheme of our overall budget, but a pretty significant benefit to our customers who need it the most. Fare simplification. We've heard from most of you and many, many other people, and we all know how complex Metro's Metro Rail fare structure is. We contemplated a whole bunch of different concepts for future potential fare structures, including a flat fare concepts, zone-based fare concepts, and settled on a simplification of our existing distance-based fare structure, largely due to a few things. Financial implications of obviously a free fare system or a flat fare system are pretty significant. And then moving from a complicated distance-based fare structure to either a flat fare or to a zone-based system presents some pretty significant equity and Title VI challenges, problems, and obstacles. That are not insurmountable, but are quite complex and would require some time to build a transition to. So rather, we've settled on a recommendation of simplifying the distance-based fare structure, eliminating the peak and off-peak fare differential, so simplifying the charge to a $2 base charge all day. That has the somewhat elegant alignment with our existing late night and weekend fare at $2 and our standard bus fare at $2. So with this proposal, the standard customer entry for Metro Rail and bus will be that flat $2. We're also recommending to simplify the distance charge and standardize it. So rather than the complicated tiered system with different rates for different time, then a standard per mile charge of 40 cents up to that maximum of $6.50. The transition from the complicated to the simple will result in some people paying less than they do today, some people paying more, but everybody having a more predictable standard fare all day with the elimination of that peak off-peak differential. Importantly, also, the Metro bus fare stays the same, so no change in the standard bus fare or the discounted fare, but with the implementation of the low-income fare program, those eligible would then see a 50% reduction in their bus fare or their Metro Rail fare. There are also, because of the structure of the Metro Access fare as twice the fastest comparable fixed route fare, there will be some simplification in the Metro Access fare, as well as some reduction in some Metro Access customers' fare as a result of the reduction in the base fare from $2.25 to $2 in the peak. So there is also some more predictability in Metro Access fares as a result of the standardization of the peak and off-peak. So instead of there being variable fares by time of day, there'll be more standardization there. So while the base Metro Access fare and the maximum Metro Access fare in the proposal remain the same, there will be some changes and some simplification as a result of the structural changes in the rail fare. Overall, what we were striving for in this proposal is to drive all 6 of the Metro Board's fare policy principles, which is not an easy thing to do, as some of them are on the surface are competing. So driving ridership and driving revenue can be at times competing objectives. But we feel with this proposal, with the simplification, with the low-income fare program, and the discounts associated with that, we can expect higher ridership next year, higher revenue as a result, and a simpler, more convenient experience for customers. And I started with this, but I'll close with it as well. So the general manager's proposed budget is a milestone in the process here, but really the start of the process for the board's consideration. So he proposed his budget in December. The board will be considering next week the authorization or the committee will be considering, Finance and Capital Committee, authorization of public hearings with the board scheduled to act on that 2 weeks later. And then public hearings will occur in, John, I think public hearings in early March. Is that the?
I believe right now we're looking at this, I think the second, like March 8th,
Okay.
second full week of March.
So public comment and public hearings in that time frame. So I say that in part because there's some time for customers, for riders, and stakeholders to participate and to react to these proposals and to provide Metro and the board some feedback. So talked a lot here. We're happy to support a discussion, answer questions, or of course, if we don't have the answer right here, we can get back to you with more information.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Tom, for that presentation. Very comprehensive on the service and fare optimization components of the FY24 budget. I have a whole page of questions and comments and stuff, but I feel like maybe our time would be better spent yielding to the rest of the RAC in terms of any questions they may have. So I'll open up the floor. You can just feel free to raise your hand. Emma.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was super helpful. One question I had, and I'm sorry if I missed it, are these assumptions for 6-car trains or 8-car trains? I'm specifically wondering about the Silver Line because I've noticed that when I've taken it recently with the Dulles stop, there are a lot more people with suitcases, and so space is a little bit more limited naturally than I've seen previously. So I was just wondering about that.
So I'll offer something and then the team jump in here. In general here, we will be striving to operate as many 8-car trains in service as is possible as part of the service plan. So as 7000 series cars are returned to service and we move towards the budgeted frequencies in the current fiscal year, and then as we move into this proposal for FY24, we would also start to see more and more 8-car trains as part of the service plan. Mark or Alex, anything to add there? Good. Okay. Thanks for the question.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. It's really helpful to look at everything and all the numbers. It's sort of one thing that's come up very frequently is really the biggest concern from riders. One of them that I've talked to, as well as myself, is the long-term health of the system. And, you know, the term death spiral gets thrown a lot around. It's been going around for a long time. And I guess you can walk me through a concern I have about really, because I know like Metro acknowledges in some of the literature about the budget, the long-term deficit and things like that. But does this fiscal year 24 budget seem like it kind of like kicks the can down the road a little bit, and kind of because there's so many unknowns, whether it's where certain federal resources are going to lapse, a lot of it's based on the assumption that ridership's going to go up to maybe 70-some% of the peak that it was before, and I'm just concerned that there's a lot of at least for this budget going forward, the proposed budget, we're still going down that death spiral, or is there a plan in place to maybe cut some costs or to move things to kind of get ahead of it for when you get to 25 and 26 as the deficit gets bigger and bigger and bigger and everything like that?
Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate that question. It is certainly a challenge. I think I'd offer that the 24 budget proposal is really a bridge to a time when significant new investment is going to be required to continue to sustain and grow the Metro system. There's no doubt that the scale of the financial challenge beyond this FY24 fiscal year proposal is very significant. It's beyond the scale of belt tightening or cutting costs here or there. It is really an opportunity to invest in the future of the system. So rather than kicking the can, I think this is optimizing the resources that we have going into this next fiscal year, working to provide the best level of service we can, simplifying fares and driving the low-income fare program and other things to try to encourage ridership and grow the system that way. But you're right. There's a structural deficit that existed pre-pandemic, where costs continue to grow and revenues and investment don't keep pace. And now that's of course exacerbated by the challenges coming out of the pandemic. So I think there'll be much more to come on this, but the concepts in the budget are, like I said, trying to optimize, use the resources the best way we can to provide great service and encourage as much ridership as we can.
Thank you.
Phil?
Yes, good evening, Tom. I'd like to ask two questions. One of them is the capital budget. And one of the issues with all of the bus project improvement is that bus stops are not being addressed. Tino Calabia, who chairs the Bus Rail Committee on the AAC, can probably talk to it more. But I know most of the bus stops are the purview of the jurisdictions. However, the board is made up of representatives of the jurisdictions. And one would hope during the budget discussion that there would be some negotiations between local board members and local jurisdictions, because some of the bus stops are truly abysmal. So increasing the service to a bus stop in the middle of a jungle with no sidewalk is not a good thing. And then one other informational item about the Metro Access fares and simplification. It sounds simple that Metro Access fare is twice the fastest parallel route on bus rail. The problem is bus and rail go to the locations at different times. And so when we calculated it 10 years ago, there were over 150,000 iterations of fares over a 30-minute period based upon which bus was going from one place to another. And it wasn't a question of the fares, it was that. And that's why the flat fare is something that has been sought after for so long, that you have the data right now for the flat fares on weekends and late nights during the week. But while it may sound good that it's simple, it really isn't simple. And if someone has a choice, which I often have, because I live on a corner where I'm across the street from the rail and in the middle of the block for 4 bus routes, and I can ride the bus for half the price to the same location. But if the train is coming at the time I book my Metro Access ride before the bus comes, I'll be paying twice as much for my Metro Access ride, but I won't know that. So that's just a question of the complication. And then the last thing, again, just to mention you, using the reduced fare formula of people that are on SNAP discriminates against all of the low-income people that are not on SNAP. And that's a huge volume of people. So I would request that you find another way to locate low-income people than just using something as simple as SNAP. Particularly now, with the change in Congress, SNAP may disappear. That's on the agenda. But thank you, I've taken too much time.
Brian, this is Pat.
Oh, hey, Pat, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. For whatever reason, I can't seem to raise my hand. The keystrokes don't work from the PC. If I could, Thank you, Tom. Appreciate. I'm going to sort of follow in Phil's footsteps. One of the tenets that we have talked about over the last couple of years is fare simplification. As Phil said, you've got 150, 200,000 combination of trips between bus and rail, and that doesn't even count what we get on the Silver Line now. And so, from the Metro Access side, you've got people that say my trip going there was $4.50. My trip coming back is $2 or $3. Why the difference? They don't understand it. We spend more time, I think, with trying to explain why the difference with the fare structure for Metro Access in getting that work done. And I wonder how, it's just very confusing. It's a combination of what comes in from the trip planner and the fare calculator. And what we have really is a chance to do a flat fare. We're doing it on weekends, as Phil said, so we know it works. We're doing it late night, so we know it works. And what we want to try to do is have universal fare application and a sense of equity for individuals throughout the system. I think that it would be very easy to do. It'll make the lives of people with disabilities so much easier. Phil brought up the point about the calculation of twice the fastest fare. Why do we have to have even twice the fastest fare? Why can't that be one time or 1.5 or something like that? He also brought up the idea of you tying the disability rate for disadvantaged people to SNAP. Well, you have SSI, Social Security Income, SSDI. Those could be better models. But I think just making it easy down the line, we've already doing it for 30, 40, 45% of the trips. Why can't we just have a flat fare of $4? I know that when we've looked at the money as it comes in from individuals who are taking trips now, I think the $4 would actually be a slight increase overall for the budget for Metro Access. So I would ask that we take another look at what we're doing for people with disabilities, see what we can do to move towards fare simplification, and that's something that I'm going to urge, and I'm going to have individuals with disabilities urge for a fare simplification of a fixed fare, flat fare that we're already enjoying evenings and weekends. Thank you very much. Mark, you did a great job last night with this with AAC, and a great presentation tonight. Thank you.
Jose?
Yeah, real quickly, I want to thank you guys for presenting this stuff. This is all pretty interesting. Only question I had was you guys had shown 3 bus routes, I think it's B2, A12, and 16M. Were there other routes that maybe couldn't make it into this FY24 budget that you guys are looking at? I think these are good ideals to look at, growing ridership and stuff like that. I just kind of want to know a little bit more how you guys arrived at these. And maybe you guys already explained it.
So yeah, I'm happy to offer a little more on this and ask the team to jump in as well. So what we are very much looking at, in fact, every bus route across the whole region as part of the network redesign. What we've focused on here were really 3 key increments where I think I mentioned earlier, some of the work had been done previously on frequency improvements, on some of the planning work on frequency improvements and restructures. And there's an opportunity to do these in advance of the network redesign, sort of independent of that process. So the B2 in the district is really a continuation of the all-day service network program that was implemented about 1.5 years ago, so very similar in concept there. for a very high ridership route. The A12 in Maryland is a restructure to try to simplify and improve connections. That again is not so much dependent on a broader network redesign. And then that 16M is similarly a restructure and an extension to connect to Crystal City. So incremental improvements among a whole long list of potential changes that will be considered as part of the Better Bus Network redesign. Certainly, there are opportunities to do more. We thought these were three worth advancing ahead of that broader program.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I at least I agree with the 16M, just with the ridership down Columbia Pike. I take the 16A to, Pentagon City, and having that extension could be kind of helpful, if you have to stop by and get something before going to Crystal City. So I appreciate your follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? So I have a few, and of course, if anything comes up between now and when I finish, just continue to raise your hand. Actually, the first is just a comment, just to send a reminder to everyone on the rack in terms of this timeline that you see. So the board of directors, I believe, was briefed on service and fare optimization concepts in late October. On our November 4th meeting of the RAC, we were briefed, and that is when we had our little vote-a-rama. I know Mark was there. Alex, I forget whether you were there. And then on our November 17th board meeting, the WMATA Board of Directors, we presented our recommendations preempting the release of the actual budget. And in that report, we had articulated the importance of eliminating the differential between peak and off-peak fares, creating a low-income fare program, simplifying the formula used for the mileage, and we kind of punted on the service optimization in large part because there were a lot of different proposals and we didn't think that we had enough information. So the fact that the FY24 budget that was released in December and that we're talking about now and we'll be talking about for the next 3 or 4 months includes all of the fare optimizations that we talked about. And again, I'm just speaking Metro Rail or Metro Bus. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about Metro Access and how that plays into all of this. I don't know if I'd say impressive, but grateful that our feedback was received by staff. And we will see when we do the, budget workshops and public outreach, whether what was proposed and what we talked about in November is whether we're all on the same page. So I just want to kind of remind everyone of that timeline in terms of what happened. In terms of some questions I have, the first, why Mount Vernon as the turnback spot?
There is a simple infrastructure reason for that. That is where we have the infrastructure to support the turnback. We have operated this service pattern in the past. We are limited in locations where that type of service pattern is possible by the infrastructure that's available across the system. So that is the reason for that location. It also happens to work well with the service design here, but it's really the limiter is, or the constraint is where that infrastructure is.
Can I just add on to that, Hummer? Do you want to briefly explain what a pocket track is and why it does what it does? And...
Sure.
maybe just simply to explain to people why that's there and not someplace else.
Right, so if you can imagine, I'm not going to do this justice, you're putting pressure on me here, but you can imagine 2 tracks and trains coming every few minutes in both directions. You need a spot to turn a train around. So pocket track is a place where a train can pull out of the service, out of the main line 2 lines, and turn around and go back the other way. We only have a few of these across the system. Mount Vernon is one of the places they're located. Otherwise, you would be turning trains around in active service, which you can't do at frequencies like we have.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I didn't really know about that. My next question is increased service on the Orange Line. I personally will not complain. I mean, I live in Ballston, so I just hop on whatever train comes to the station and I take it. But I know not this year or even 2022, I think maybe even 21, we were briefed on the traffic that goes through Roslyn and how it's oftentimes, if not near capacity. You're confident that the increased service on the Orange Line can be handled, especially through a station like Roslyn?
You are correct that there is a core capacity constraint. So it starts at Roslyn coming from Virginia and runs through the core of our system. Maximum amount of trains is limited. We're confident that the infrastructure can support this level of service. We'll be getting close to maxing out how much service can operate in the core between Roslyn and Stadium Armory on the blue, orange, and silver with this service proposal in the FY24 budget. So some of you are familiar with our blue, orange, silver corridor capacity and reliability study and some of the work that's been happening there. And that is planning for future investments to increase east-west capacity to relieve that problem and grow ridership and improve, again, equity and access to opportunity. But we will be more or less maxed out in capacity through the core with this service proposal.
Good to know, but also we're really looking forward to seeing kind of that blue, orange, silver line capacity grow, especially with those being in high demand areas. My next question, it was not covered in the presentation, so I do have to apologize if I'm catching you off guard. And that pertains to service hours. Are there non-budgetary reasons for why we can't have, in particular, longest service hours on the weekend or earlier service hours on the weekends?
So there are a lot of non-budgetary reasons for service hour considerations. The key is maintenance and capital project work in the across the system. The hours of service and available time for work on the tracks or work that requires the tracks to be shut down is a balance. And so there's work underway now. We've described it as maintenance optimization or optimization of overnight maintenance to try to get as much productivity out of that period of time when we're doing maintenance overnight, with an eye towards, we all want more service, more hours of service long term, but figuring out how to balance those trade-offs is an ongoing consideration here too. So again, in this sort of multi-step, using the resources the best way we can, optimizing the time, the physical infrastructure, the financial resources, that'll continue to be a goal and a consideration.
No, thank you. And one of the reasons I asked is just because I know that was part of our, again, preemptive recommendations back in November. But there's obviously a lot of constraints that exist within a system. Obviously financial constraints with supply and demand, but also for some of those non-budgetary reasons. Is still studying service hours, is that something that you all are doing on an active basis, presumably, even outside of the budget process?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. The low-income program, just a question, actually two questions. That won't roll out by July 1st, 23, will it?
So we are striving to implement it, assuming that it works its way through our process here and we move forward as quickly as we possibly can, with an eye towards July. There may be technical hurdles to being able to do it that soon, but that's the goal.
And would I be presumptuous? And if I am, please correct me. The reason that you all are utilizing SNAP is because things like income verification are already being done for that particular program by the federal government, and so you all wouldn't have to create your own system for doing that?
Yeah. So one of the barriers to establishing a low-income fare program is that eligibility verification process. So with an eye towards speed of implementation, simplicity of implementation, relying on another proven process for qualification and certification allows us to implement it quicker and more seamlessly.
And then just my last comment, I promise no more questions, is as a Virginia resident, I do think the 16M, that was very comforting to see. I think the Columbia Pike is just, the amount of traffic and the popularity in that area certainly warrants improved service on the bus. So, okay. I will turn it back to the group if there's any questions or comments. Sorry, I just hijacked a bunch of time in the meeting. Hearing none? Thank you. Oh, yes, John.
I just want to let everyone know that, so this will go to the board. They'll authorize the public hearings at the end of this month. And then the comment period will start mid to late February. So I will be keeping you all in the loop about sort of our stakeholder toolkits, as you've seen for other, that we've done for other projects that have sent you, for stuff about the Silver Line and the Platform Improvement Project, and other tools that will help you as you go out and talk to your networks and get their feedback to inform sort of your recommendations to the board. So it will be, we're not going to be going out to the public for probably about a month and a half because there's a lot of wheels that need to turn to get everything ready to take the show on the road. But when that is ready to go, you'll get information to help facilitate your discussions with your networks.
Thank you, and I greatly appreciate that, not only because that will give the opportunity for RAC members to participate themselves, but also potentially to attend as many virtual or public hearings as possible. I think that'd be great, just so we can see, get real-time feedback from riders and customers in general, but, also see kind of how it aligns with what's been presented and what we've discussed in our own meetings. Any last questions or comments?
Brian, if I could just say thanks again for engaging with us. As you mentioned, we're listening, so we appreciate the feedback, and even if we disagree, it's great to have the engagement and have the conversation. So appreciate it.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us about the proposed FY24 budget. As we've discussed, this is going to be a multi-month process, and you're certainly going to hear from us between now and the eventual adoption and implementation of the budget. but I think we've started off on kind of a good front, both for the operational, but also the capital side of it. So thank you so much, and yeah, we'll be in touch. Thanks. Okay, we'll now move on to our next agenda item, which is the annual report committee update. Mike.
Thanks, Brian. Just a couple quick things for the annual report committee. We are down one member, so I wanted to put out there if anyone on the RAC who's not on the committee does speak to riders regarding rider concerns, please feel free to provide us, just send an email or let me know directly, however you want to do it, just what those riders' concerns are that we speak to, and any proposed solutions that those riders might have. And then I'm thinking, next meetings, what we'll do is then we'll, at the next RAC meeting, we'll kind of put all this together, kind of really lay out all of the concerns that the riders have expressed to committee members over the last several months, and then think about some proposed solutions to incorporate into the report. And just a question for John. I just wanted to revisit our one ask that we had a while ago. I understand a lot going on, so I appreciate all of your support. Getting access to some of the rider survey data that was provided to the staff a while back, seeing if we can get some of that so we can better formulate our proposed solutions for the report.
Yes, so I have had some initial conversations with our customer research folks, and I need to follow back up with them now that we've sort of cleared through the holidays and into the new year. But I think that there is some, I want to say possibility, or I think there's some movement there. So I think there's a possibility to get some high level information to help you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Brian. Hi, guys. First, thank you, and Mike, thanks for your leadership. I have a question about kind of what the cadence is. I know everyone's sending you data information, and you're gathering that. Is that one person a month? Is that 10 people a month? Is it 30 people a month? 100? What is the? How are we doing on that? Because it is good qualitative data. Just curious about the cadence. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's less than that. It's I think we're about 50 total people right now, to be honest. I've spoken to a number of people, a few people. Halia has provided some people. I think Marcella, who's obviously not on the RAC anymore, provided some good information directly to me. I think about 10 people that she had spoken to, bus and train. I was going to put out I'll just say it now, to members of the committee, if anybody you've spoken to over the last several months, or if you haven't gotten started, no problem, it's a new year. If you can speak to as many people as you feel comfortable speaking to and provide it to me, you can send it in an email. We do have that, and I can send the link again. We do have a data sheet that I haven't always been great at updating it as well, but it's pretty good. It's just connected to email, and it's really useful to kind of record the solutions and which jurisdiction and all the data points for that. I know Patrick for Metro Access certainly would love to have as much as you can provide. So probably to answer your direct question, probably less than what I was hoping and expecting so far as individuals speaking to, but I think that, I think we can get there.
But maybe this is an opportunity for a call to action to your fellow committee members. Maybe everyone could try to talk to 5 people a month or something, I don't know, just food for thought. And then I think the data that you asked for the WMATA data will be incredibly helpful in informing the conversation. I just think we have to remember that the qualitative data is so helpful. It supplements other quantitative data. So rolling that all up together as you guys think about recommendations. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work.
Michael, this is Pat with AAC and RAC and Metro Access or whatever. So we've got a lot of good people that I can speak to. They have done a lot of outreach. I can get some numbers for you, but particularly some of maybe the top 5 recommendations or something like that we're seeing as far as issues going forward. So I owe you that, and I can get that for you.
That's great. And also,
see where we are. Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And the concerns as well from riders, you know, and you know, because like I mentioned earlier during the public comment portion, you know, there's things that might be considered small potatoes to, you know, in comparison to discussions about the budget and the fiscal health of the system. But, you know, we're talking to riders that their day to day, they spend, you know, a good portion of their mornings and afternoons, if they're commuters or whatever it is, every day. You know, there's things that affect their lives on a daily basis. So I think their concerns are something that, you know, we should incorporate into this, which again is also part of the mandate from our governing bylaws, you know, is presenting the concerns to the board, but as well as our proposed solutions. And I think once we have these concerns, and definitely the solutions that riders propose, you know, for your people, Pat, that's excellent. Then we can bring all of that before we really start drafting the report, so everybody from the RAC can kind of weigh in on proposed solutions and really think about it, and we can have a really good document that's meaningful and really represents the concerns and the solutions for the riders.
And
so, but
Brianna,
thank you to the committee for all
Brianna, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you guys go ahead.
I was going to say, I am a little more unburied from my inbox, and I saw a request from you for information. So I'm going to work on that also. I owe you an email on some Metro Access issues.
Brian, can you go again?
Good.
I also want to just remind the RAC members that budget hearings are going to be this spring. It might be interesting to, you know, for each of your jurisdictions, for you all to sit and listen, maybe even be in person, interact with on the side. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, you know, you're welcome. We can figure something out if people want to go to the hearings. There's also the opportunity, if our communications and outreach staff were here, Lisa would say that our outreach is not just hearings. We send a lot of people out to intercept people where they are to get information and to get feedback, or to at least let them know that there are ways to provide feedback on the budget. I'm sure you've all seen the folks in the yellow vests. You know, and there are also opportunities if you want to go out and do that. I know that I think a couple years ago, some folks went out in advance of one of the platform improvement projects. So that's another opportunity to sort of glom onto some of the outreach activities that Metro is doing to expand your reach.
And one last thing for me, if you don't mind, is, you know, based on what Brianna's suggestion, if everybody on the committee can, you know, can set a goal for 2 to 5 people riders that they speak to, whether it's bus or train or Metro Access, which Pat we already talked about, each week, that'll get us the numbers that we're looking for to put together a really meaningful report. So 2 to 5 would be great. And anybody else on the RAC, again, you speak to anybody or want to, don't worry about not being an official member of this illustrious committee. We're very happy to get your input. And thanks again to everybody.
No, thank you so much, Mike, for your leadership in this regard and for taking ownership of this project. I think at the last WMATA board meeting, part of my report included kind of synthesizing some of the ideas, not only from the document, but also our December meeting of the RAC. And I made sure to include some concerning customer behavior, in particular, smoking, littering, loud music noises, and general sense of safety. Of course, this was at the same time that I think the shooting had happened in Benning, and then Metro was before that. I think I may not have done entire justice to the conversation of fare evasion, and I actually had a very nice conversation with Mike on the Metro about that. I ran into him, I think, on the Silver Line. So I think for our January reports and in subsequent reports, Mike, I'll want to reach out to you specifically with the help of John, of course, to kind of synthesize any new information that has come in or lingering issues that need to be brought before the WMATA board. Are there any other comments or questions about the annual report committee? Hearing or seeing none, we'll move into our next agenda item, which is new business and announcements. Are there any members that would like to present any new business items or announcements?
That would be me. So I know that sometimes it's hard to get here by 6 o'clock, and I really appreciate everyone's engagement online. I mean, I think that, almost everyone that's online we've heard from in some way, and I hope that before we leave tonight we can go around and round robin so that everyone that's participating in the meeting puts their camera on so we can see them and offers some wisdom for the RAC before we close. And I think we should make that a habit, and I think if we can do that, we could potentially move to all virtual meetings. So we kind of get rid of this hybrid environment. But with that, I also want to offer that we would come together at least quarterly in person, make that commitment. And so, maybe move to an all virtual settings for most meetings, but quarterly or at least 3 times a year. And that might be for a meeting, or we've talked about doing some field trips, but some opportunity for us to connect directly with each other. But I do find, I'm in Teams meetings all day long myself, I do find when we can see each other on camera that is so, and I see that I'm not quite on camera yet, but oh, there you go. Here I am. I'm right next to John. That it feels, like we're connecting a little better. So I just offer that as a suggestion. It's your committee, but food for thought.
No, I certainly like that idea, Bryna. I know I don't have a choice to be on camera or not. Here it is. But yeah, no, certainly I appreciate that interactive nature. Certainly that we become comfortable, go around the circle and try to get everyone's input that's on the RAC. 1 second. Okay, so I guess I'll just start with the first person that I see that's on the RAC is just Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hello again. I think I've spoken today, but Happy New Year to everybody again.
And also your thoughts about the proposal on the table. Thanks.
Oh yeah. I think that's a good idea. I like going to the meetings. I think the meetings are good to actually meet with people and really, talk to them and like Bryna said, get the, kind of get the, this works better when you're meeting with people, but, everybody has different schedules. Everybody has their own lives, whether it's families or jobs, everything like that. I know for me, if our meeting gets done as late as 8 o'clock, for example, it takes about an hour to get home on the Metro. So it's 9 o'clock. So I like the virtual idea as long with the caveat that quarterly meetings are in person to the extent possible for everybody, understanding everybody has various things in their life. But I think that's a really good idea. Thank you for proposing that.
Jose?
Hey everybody, and yeah, sorry for not participating as much as possible with the presentation, but I think with the proposal on the table, I think I'm all for virtual, just with time commitments and getting. I want to get there on time and talk to you guys, but I think the last time I came down, I got there right when we started. So, but Brian, to the proposal about quarterlies, or I'm more looking forward to maybe if there's opportunities, whether it's some of the people in Virginia, DC, or Maryland getting together to do some of these field trips. I think there's some cool projects. I mean, with Potomac Yard coming up, where we can all, maybe get to know our system a little bit better. So yeah, open to suggestions on field trips or even going to Metro Bar or whatever. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. John, you have a hand.
John?
I just wanted to follow up, just because Jose mentioned it. The 6 o'clock start time isn't set in stone. If adjusting that, maybe moving virtually will make it easier for everybody to be here at 6. But if we need to adjust that, I would certainly be open to changing it to make it easier for people to get to, home or wherever they are to participate in the meeting. So if anybody has thoughts on that, please chime in.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I really like the idea of like a quarterly, let's make an effort to all get together. I admittedly, the past 2 months had all intentions of making it personally to the Metro office. And of course, today it was like catching up on holiday emails. But the thing is, like, there's always going to be something, right? But I feel like if we make it a point to maybe meet 3-4 times a year in person, and then either do virtual or hybrid the rest of the time, I think that would be really useful. I would love to meet other folks on the RAC as well.
Pat?
I'm a big fan of the virtual meetings. I know with the what we've seen with the AAC, we've been getting tremendous amounts of participation on the regular meeting, and then in our, whether we call them working groups or subcommittees or whatever, in those groups, probably 45, 50 people. And so I think that it works well. In my particular case, being blind, it just, the transportation can be a little more difficult navigating and all of that. Metro Access getting home, just a little bit more work. So I like this. I appreciate it. I think getting together, I certainly like the idea of getting together around projects. I think there are some things that we can work with and to learn more about the infrastructure on the system. One of the things that I actually have neglected to talk to this committee about is a project with an internal GPS system called Waymaps. And that is internal GPS, which they are going to be doing throughout the system. I'll be getting more information on it in the middle of January, as far as the soft rollout of this system. But it is basically internal GPS, as accurate as external GPS is, basically using the Waymaps, Verizon 5G internal GPS, and it's going to allow for access for all kinds of customers and really be completed in about 18 months. So I think it's a very interesting project being sponsored by WMATA and some of the disability community, but it really has impact for a lot of people. So as we get it more of a soft rollout, I don't think it'll happen in the winter, maybe a little bit later. I'll let this group know, and I think if members of this group would like to participate in a project like that, at least learn about the technology, what it is, how it works, and what it does, I think that would be fascinating. But it's very exciting for the disability community to give us step-by-step directions inside each of the metro stations, and then also connect this outside with restaurants, shopping, and everything else, step-by-step internal GPS. Very cool.
Thank you so much, Pat. Emma?
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Yeah, I'm fully supportive of the virtual proposal. I think that's a great idea. I've never been a huge fan of hybrid. I like either all in person or all virtual. So I would support that. And sort of to echo what Pat said, I think it makes it more approachable for members of the public. If it's virtual, they don't feel like they're talking to a massive room full of people where their face is projected. We're all somewhat accustomed now to this virtual environment. I think it just feels, more approachable. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like there's a pretty strong consensus on that particular subject. I know I certainly would love a reprieve from coming here every single month, although I do come here every month anyways for the board report, of course, and sometimes the committee meetings if I get time, but which also brings me up to another new business, which is if you do have, I know Thursday mornings twice a month may be a lot to ask, but if you are curious about some of the inner workings of WMATA and also being able to kind of get that face-to-face interaction that, you may not be able to get maybe at a meeting or with any given particular event that you may or may not attend, certainly I think the board meetings are a fun opportunity to come here at our headquarters and check it out and to get to meet some of the WMATA board members as well as some of the staff members for the system. So, John, can you send the calendar if there's an updated calendar year 23?
Yes, I will send out the calendar, and then we'll try and get a little. One of my performance goals for the year is to regularize things a little bit more, and so I'm going to try and be a little bit more regular with getting you all updates on what's going on with the board.
Resolution?
No, my job. HR doesn't call it a resolution, unfortunately. I wish.
I guess the beginning of the year is Q3, so your Q3 performance goals.
Yes. So anyway, but yes, I will send out the schedule. I would also, and I can't remember if I've said it to this group, but if you don't have the time or the bandwidth, if you're working, to watch a full meeting, they are of course archived on YouTube. You can, watch them later in the day or at any point. It's also interesting to follow the Twitter accounts of either Justin George, who writes for The Post, or Jordan Pascal, who writes for WAMU/DCS. They provide a pretty good, quick recap in 212 characters or less. So those are interesting to skim if you can't watch the whole meeting.
Perfect. Are there any other new announcements or new business items? Hearing or seeing none, our next item is the adjournment. So I move that we adjourn this meeting of the Riders Advisory Council on January 4th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all so much. And we'll be in touch with a recap of the meeting as soon as possible. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Happy New Year.
We'll
Happy
see
New
you.
Year.
Happy New Year. We'll see you at the
Bye,
end of the
everyone.
month, Brian.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yep,
Thank
see you all.